So my rising sign from the Rasi?
Say again?
The rising sign from the Rasi?
The Bādhaka is primarily seen in the Rashi. We can see it from everywhere. Every house has a Bādhaka. We can go into the Vamsha and look at Bādhaka from everything can have because everything has obstacles. But our primary Bādhaka that we look at in life is that which is physically giving us Bādhaka, which is from the Rashi.
My ascendant is in Scorpio, but Ketu in the rising sign.
Well, we go to the it's a fixed sign, so we go to the ninth.
Mars, right?
So, but because it's a fixed sign,
Ninth.
We go to the ninth house.
The ninth house I have 4 planets in it.
Okay.
Mercury, Venus, Sun, and Saturn.
Mercury, Venus, Sun, and Saturn. So each of those we would have to take the deities out and work with each of those deities.
Plus the moon, right? Because moon is fundamentally about the cage.
It depends
it depends on what's causing more problems, but it sounds like that'll cause more obstacles than,
The moon is in the 5th, in Pisces.
in Pisces. Yeah. Primary Bādhaka, when a planet's there, it's causing the primary Bādhaka.
Right.
The Bādhakash then calls the secondary. Only if there's no planet there.
They don't look at that.
Yeah, well, we got to look at both, but the primary.
Right.
Shri.
So I have a Chara Rashi Lagna.
Uh-huh.
So I go to the 11th Baba. There's the Buddha Yoga there, so it's Sun and Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
So I could go for Agni or Vishnu.
Mm-hmm.
But would I go for Sun and Mercury or both? I don't know.
Or you could do the combination of them both. It's Buddha Ditya Yoga.
Yeah.
So, I would take Aditya. Worship Aditya, the sun god is Aditya. You can, yeah.
How far are the sun and...
They're not, nobody's not.
The other thing is, during the dashas of each one, one dasha you might have to worship the Mercury form, one dasha you might have to worship the sun form. Another dasha you might actually have to take the lord of it and actually do some worship. Depending on what's causing Bādhaka in the chart. But they're the primary.
So would you look at the yoga and say the yoga causes?
You can, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Kathy. Who? What's your Bādhaka?
My Bādhaka is Mercury.
Yeah? And what's Mercury look like? What sign's it in?
It's in the 11th house in Capricorn.
In Capricorn. Okay. So how do you think that would manifest? What form of the divine?
Vishnu.
Okay, Vishnu. Any particular form?
It's in a limbal sign.
Mm-hmm.
Sri Vishnu avatar.
An avatar.
So I always have to look at the avatars. And
I would because Mercury is showing all the avatars, but because it's if there was a planet conjunct it, then like your daughter's chart, we use Ram because Mercury is conjunct the sun. But in your case, we're using we would use it's conjunct what? Mars. So we'd use maybe Narasimha. Yes, because of that conjunction there. It's taking on that form.
yes.
It's an avatar. If it wasn't there, I'd go with Korma avatar because of the Lord of the sign. But this is a big science, and depending, kind of like how I was looking at our chart, well, because of this, because of that, because of this, because of that, it's all going to be, it's definitely a science that we have to begin to understand the deities and begin to meditate on the deities. And the more we learn about the deities, the more we can see them in the chart. In the same way, the water just came on as we were talking about her chart. And so we might even just say, go Shri Krishna. The Jala Tattva, the moon got activated. Okay, so we have to, when we're talking about when we're really looking at the deity, really pay attention to what's going on. Just like at the same time when she was stuck, I looked at Bādhaka. The sprinkler just came on. Look, what is sprinkler? It's water. Look at Venus, look at the moon. So
my moon is in a Martian sign, and then a Rahu.
no, I'm not saying look at the moon, I'm just
Yeah.
the moon, so that form of what form of Vishnu is connected to the water element?
Right.
Krishna.
So that's more like a Nimitta.
Just the Nimitta,
Kind of.
yeah. We have to use the Nimittas. Did you calculate your Bādhaka?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Sun in the 9th house in Capricorn.
Sun in the 9th house in Capricorn. We got all these people with Bādhakas in Capricorn.
It looks like Shiva.
Yes. Definitely Shiva. Okay, so we have the deity. Now, and as I said, this is, if we begin to understand this, we begin to understand all remedies. And what I'm kind of showing you, once, I'll just tell you a little story. I was in,
There's one more in the back corner.
Okay.
I was in Rajasthan and was talking to this gentleman. So, he was talking and he said, you should meet this great astrologer who's just on and on about. So I went and they took me there and we're discussing this and that, and I was hoping to see this great astrologer. Basically, I'm reading this chart and it's like, well, what's wrong with this gentleman? They kind of diluted around who it was, and so I said, yeah, this and that, and I made a guess with Prashna about what was wrong and said there's career problems, and I was right. And so they were impressed, and this is the way it works. If you get something right, they're happy with you. If you get it wrong, they're not. And so, they're like, well, what's the remedy? And 10th Lord was, I can't remember the exact problem, but there was something, Mars was the problem, and it was sitting in the 2nd house. So I said, worship a form of Hanuman riding. And have you ever seen Hanuman riding?
So there's something where there's seen a picture of the month god sitting on something going somewhere. I don't know if it's a tiger. Is it a tiger or something like that? Or
I've seen only one image, and it was in Cambodia, in Angkor Wat. They have Rama carrying Hanuman. Yeah. So I told him, get this image and worship this form of Hanuman, and everything will be fine. And they're onesie. But I was fully accept it with this little thing, this little tidbit of being able. And all we used is, if we look, if you have Vedic Remedies, I didn't copy this, but if we look in the Bādhaka chapter.
What page?
Page 444. 444. We see a list of houses and the postures. And so for the first house we have standing, for the second house we have riding. So the Mars was in the second house. I said, make sure Hanuman's riding. Great applause for that. Now, if you look at this chart, 1, 5, and 9 are standing. So who had the deity that we just calculated in 1, 5, or 9? So you got to worship a form of Lakshmi standing. You have all those deities standing. Okay, Shiva standing. You don't want Shiva sitting. You don't want him riding on his bull. You don't want him these other things. You don't want him lying down. You want Shiva standing.
Nataraja.
No, not Nataraj, because he's dancing.
Yes.
That's 7th house.
Oh.
That's not standing.
Yeah, very specific. These forms are very specific. So 1, 5, and 9 are standing. Then if we have 2, 6, and 10. Actually, we'll skip 2, 6, and 10 and go right to. We'll go back to 2, 6, and 10. 3, 7, and 11. You guys know these trines, right? Okay. 3 is sitting, and 11 is sitting. So I'm sure you've seen images. Right there we have Tara sitting. Where here we have Vajrayogini standing. So why I have images of Tara sitting, Tara standing as well. But what image are you going to sit in front of and do your mantras and worship, and what are you going to visualize her as? Based on the house that planet's coming from. Here we have, this is a Saraswati riding, not just a Saraswati sitting. So if we look at Ganesh, we can see him in every possible form, riding, sitting.
Which deity is that?
She's called the living goddess. It's a form of Tripura Sundari. Yeah. Mercury, basically. Worshipped in Nepal. Yeah, it's a Nepali. It's the Nepali form of Tripura.
Eventually we're talking about.
Yeah. And that's the best picture I have of Tripura right now, so that's what I'm using. Until I get a big picture of Tripura in another form, then... I have Mercury, though, in the 4th house. So what's 4th house?
Sleeping.
So 4, 8, and 12 are sleeping, but when they say sleeping, reclining works as well. Doesn't always have to be sleeping. Especially for you got to be real careful with sleeping, because you might put we want the deity to actually do something too most of the time. So sometimes reclining is better than sleeping. And we see plenty of times Vishnu laying on his serpent, or we see Krishna sleeping, or Shiva laying down by a tree reclining. So we can take the form there for those houses accordingly. Now, going back to 2, 6, and 10. 2 is riding, 6 is walking, and 10 is crawling. All the others, they matched pretty easily. Actually, except 7th house, I left that out. 7th house is dancing. So that's where Nataraj. Have you seen that dancing Ganesh? Beautiful dance. It's all about the 7th house. Somebody wants to get married, make sure they're worshipping whatever form of the deity in the dancing form. That dancing form is... If you're going to have a deity in your bedroom, at least have them dancing. Otherwise, keep the deities out of the bedroom.
That would be also a good form of worship, like a dancing worship.
For the 7th, if the graha is in the 7th house, then that's how it's...
That's why I could do like a Kali kind of a dance.
You have your moon's in the 7th.
Yes.
So dancing Kali.
Okay.
Get her dancing beautifully. There's some of my favorite pictures of her are dancing. Because when she dances wildly and in frenzy. She's not dancing for beauty, like Saraswati or Lakshmi dance. She's out there dancing in trance. Yeah.
Where are you going to find a crawling deity? I've seen,
Krishna crawling is about I would say go riding with all of them. That's why I said, that's why I went to that one last, because all the others are pretty much the same. You can look at the trines and it'll give you the general idea. For the riding, walking, crawling, for Krishna, if the moon or Mercury is there, then go for a crawling Krishna, but otherwise go for riding. The big concept is riding is all about sustaining. And the career, sustaining the career, 6th house, sustaining the service or whatever the connections are. So riding. So this is with Bādhaka. So we see how now we know how we're going to worship the deity that's connected to the Bādhaka. Now, just to show how this applies to so much else, like we're learning it with Bādhaka because it's here that's how Guruji taught it and that's how Harihara is teaching it, but this can apply to everything, anything. We can look at our Ishta Devata. What sign is your Ishta? When we're looking at the Ishta Devata, when we take your Ishta Devata as what planet? Jupiter. What in the Rashi? Where is it?
5th.
In the 5th. So we have a standing form of Vamanadev. Your Ishta is Venus, Lakshmi, and she is in what house? 10th house. So we have a riding. So we want her riding. Riding, yeah. And For you, we have, and Saturn is in what sign in your?
Saturn. It's in I think it's second house.
Second house. So again, riding. So in this way, we can really fine tune the deity. Now, if someone's trying to get married, Gail, what do we give? What's the upaya we give them to get married?
Oh, they need to fast on the day that Upaya Lord.
And what else?
I didn't hear that one.
Not dancing.
I don't know what else.
You fast and worship.
Oh, the Lord, right?
The Lord in the appropriate form of Vishnu or Lakshmi, whether it's male or female.
Okay.
If it's a male, they worship the appropriate form of Lakshmi. If it's female, they worship the appropriate form of Vishnu, while fasting on the Upapada.
Okay.
So when they're trying to get married, we use a standing form. Once they get married, what do? Anybody know?
The reclining form?
No, not a recline.
Dancing.
Sitting.
When somebody is married and they need to sustain the relationship, we worship the second house from the Upapada
Oh, right.
in a form of Vishnu or Lakshmi relative. Riding to sustain. So if we're looking at business, the person is trying to sustain a business, we look at the form of Vishnu, connect it with the second house from the A7, and get a riding form of Vishnu relative to that Baba. So you see how this is very important when we pick the deity. So we have the chart of the deities that we picked before. We have this chart of standing, riding, sitting, reclining. I'm going to say reclining instead of sleeping. Okay. And then, what's our other chart here? We have the remedy itself. So we have the form, and then we have the remedy. But actually, besides just the remedy, how do we worship that form? How do we worship that particular form? Bādhaka remedies. We take if you see the chart there, we have, actually it's the chart on the other page. Sun, Mars, Agni, Venus, Moon, Jala, Mercury, Earth element, Jupiter, Ether element, Saturn, air element. And so we look at the Lord of the sign that the Bādhaka is in. And so for if it's lorded by Sun or Mars, then we have a lamp or candle that we're offering to that deity. So we pick the deity, we pick how the deity looks, now we know what we're going to offer to the deity.
Oh, that's right, you have to worship the top. That's what that note was on the chart.
That's a little different. We'll get,
a little bit different?
Yeah, a little bit different. So if it's in a Venus sign, we're offering milk, ghee, sweets. Here. That's just like sweetmeats, yeah. Sweetmeats. Does that even have any?
There's sweetmeats.
The word of the sign that the Bādhaka is in.
And we look at its element. And then that's what we offer to the deity.
The deity that we just figured out.
Yes. To remove obstacles. Are you following this, Scott, or is this?
It's mostly for terminology and for
Okay.
Basically.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta cover both ends, beginners and advanced. So yeah.
I'm assimilating.
Well, next year you should be able to understand all of this. You better be able to. So, let's see, Venus. Here is rice pudding for Venus and Moon. Milk, these milky, watery substances, offering this to the deity. Lamp or candle, we light a candle or ghee lamp in front of the deity. If it's in a fire ruled sign, earth ruled sign, we put sandalwood paste or essential oils on the deity. If it's a picture, make sure you have a glass frame. In India, I go to a lot of places where they don't put glass on top of the deity, and they just put it on the deity, and then the picture wears away, and then they keep, and half that there's nothing but cardboard on the forehead of the deity. Because every day you're supposed to wash it off and put fresh on.
And do you get this stuff like from an Indian bazaar?
Yeah.
Indian
What do you
shop?
need from a bazaar? The picture you might need to get.
Uh-huh.
The candle you can buy anywhere.
But like sandalwood paste, where do you get that?
Sandalwood paste. Get some. If you can't get sandalwood paste, go and get some essential oils.
Oh, okay. Like a sandalwood essential oil.
Sandalwood essential oil.
Oh, okay.
Get essential.
Well,
We can get very specific about the type of essential oil. We're just gonna gloss over them out here.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so you're offering oils and scents and things of that nature. For the ether element, we're offering flowers. And so for Jupiter ruled signs. And for Saturn ruled signs, we're offering incense primarily.
That's dupe.
Dupe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So dupe means incense in general term, or does it mean a particular type of incense?
Earth with sweet stuff?
I've seen various things, and it's a thing of opinion, but for Saturn in general, we always use incense.
Doom makes a lot of smoke, white smoke, and with smell,
Mm-hmm.
and it evaporates they put into the fire actually instead of burning it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they take this paste and you roll it into these cones and burn it, and they call that dupe.
Okay.
But the primary concept is incense.
Okay.
That burning, that smoke going up and offering to Saturn. So what do you think someone who's smoking is doing? They're placating that Saturn.
Would smoking a cigarette do? No.
Right? It's what is burning incense? It's offering smoke to the deity. There's some Madame Blavatsky would smoke incredibly large amounts. She was working with all kinds of deities. She had to offer them smoke or else they'd get angry.
Yeah. Back was a person.
Yeah.
Which one is water?
Water. The water.
The water. What do you
Moon.
You just offer water?
Milk.
Oh, milk.
Rice pudding.
Oh, I thought that was earth. Okay, what missed earth then?
Earth, the Prithvi element, that's the sandalwood paste and the oil.
Oh, okay.
And Jupiter's flowers.
Okay, thank you.
And these are kind of standard remedies. So this will all play out in almost all our remedies. There's going to be some connection with what we're talking about right here.
With like ash, also like sacred ash work for an earth.
This is all in the book.
It would be right over. It's burnt, so no, because that's the Martian nature of it. You want something that has good ganda, good smell to it.
So for Saturn, what does it mean by dress and ornaments? What does that mean? That's when you dress up the idols?
Look at the Saraswati right there. You see her little ornament. She's dressed. You go in my room before you leave, and Tripura. See how she's garlanded?
Okay.
If that's a garland right there. You look in my room. I have a Buddha Graha that has a crown on and gold around his neck and necklaces and a big old, so in this way, yeah. And I have Saturn aspecting my Mercury. So I have this beautifully ornamented Buddha Graha.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see how, we're not in Bādhaka anymore, but do you see how these remedies are all connected?
They're fine-tuning it.
Well, these are general principles. We're using it for Bādhaka, but they're general principles.
Can I ask you something personal?
Yeah.
Have you noticed, since you've done that, have you done a little experimentation research with yourself that from before you put the ornaments or whatever, the garland, and after, is there a before and after, in other words?
Well, before, I can never go back, so...
Can you remember back? Your life was maybe...
I mean, I started... I'm doing a very specific vrata with Mercury, and I started... Was it just before it started? First time I was in Puri, Bhubaneshwar, with Guruji. He gave me the teaching, and then I started to practice, and I've I mean, my life is devoted to Jyotish and huge amounts of information and things of this nature. It's so primarily.
So you've been doing these for a long time, for actually years.
Yeah.
These various deities.
Yeah.
And you just do a specific number of them because of particular aspects or placements in your chart.
There's a billion deities out there.
Right.
And there's a billion ways we can worship them. Each one.
So you just
we could spend the whole day worshiping if we wanted to.
Okay.
So
you found the most efficient ones.
What's the ones that we need to do?
Right.
To make things work in our life.
And you just do that to the rest of your life. It's not like I got my result, now I don't have to do this anymore.
Depends on the situation. Yeah, sometimes it's only during the dasha of the graha that we need to do something. Sometimes we need to do it for a year or two or so long until we get the result.
I see.
And there's a specific result we're after, so we do it until we get that result. Like, for example, we were talking about the upapada fasting. Upapada is your marriage point. So fasting on the marriage point and worshipping a specific form of Vishnu relative to that marriage point, you do until you get married. Once you get married, you're all it works. So you're ready to move on to something else.
You do something to sustain it.
The Ishta Devata we want to worship throughout our life.
I got you. Okay.
So the moon, generally, we want to understand it and worship it appropriately for most of our life because it's our own mind. The mind goes everything. So.
A couple of quick questions.
Yes.
How can we see once we know the Bādhaka? How do we know which obstacles, which areas of the life is creating obstacles?
It generally will pretty much show itself. It pretty much shows itself. Somebody
as a reader, not so much
The Bādhaka, depending on the house it falls in or where it's falling or the dasha it's coming up in, the person will be, I'll even use Guruji's own words. Sometimes there is considerable obstruction to whatever we need to do and no good work is accomplished. So when a person's trying to accomplish something and there keeps being a problem getting it done. When I started the lecture, I said, I had 2 weeks to read this chapter and I didn't read it till late last night. Like I tried, nothing would let me read it. I was Bādhaka. I was continual obstacles. And then I wanted to lecture most of the day on it, and now it's going to be a real short lecture because we spent so much time on other things. But because we were going to go a bit deeper into it than we're going now. But that we were this is all like when something is trying to manifest and it's not happening. We how's the Bādhaka having an effect? And the Bādhaka is connected to Rahu, causing this blockage. Now, what is opposite from Rahu? Ketu. And Ketu removes Rahu. What's the deity connected to Ketu? Ganesh. So sometimes people use to remove the Bādhaka, they take the 7th house from it and they use that form of Ganesh. One method.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's also, would it be good to look where Rahu is in the chart anyway? Because where Rahu is usually is where...
Where Rahu is, there's always going to be a problem.
Right, so that's what give us another...
Yeah.
Just one more quick. What's the meaning of Shastri and Kirata? I don't know what
They're kind of old school names of deities connected to Saturn.
Okay, what kind of name? Because I know someone who's got Saturn.
Yeah, we primarily use Narayan.
Narayan, okay.
Mahavishnu.
Okay, thank you.
Sometimes you can use the deity. Sits like this. South India.
Sadhana?
No, the deity who sits as the belt.
Not familiar with South India.
His devotees all wear black for part of the year, do the vrata. And then
In Kerala?
Yeah.
It's a time.
Yeah. So there's certain deities connected.
That would be one.
But they're all these little small deities that aren't
Yeah.
very well known and don't say. The big thing is Saturn is not the most worshipful planet. And when he does worship, he'll do something like Vedic worship, where it's, give me the mantras do everything, I don't need a form. Even Kali, if you worship Kali enough, you stop using form, because Kali destroys all form. Kali's the Saturn form of the Divine Mother. So we really don't have these forms for Saturn in so many ways, because Saturn destroys all form. So it gets so we use primarily, in general, in our tradition, we use Narayan. Nara means human, Ayan means the goal, the direction. So it's the goal of everybody. Yeah.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
For dual signs, you have 7 as a
Come
part.
on, tell me, you gotta remember his name. It's slipping my mind.
Murugeshwara? Muruga?
Morgan's another name for Kartikeya.
Kartikeya,
He sits like that, the belt. He's the Saturn incarnation of Vishnu. You're
For the dual signs,
Yeah.
7th is a Bādhaka sthana.
Yeah.
So do you mean that all the people born in dual sign have problems in the marriage?
When's there going to be a problem there?
Pardon?
During the dasa.
No, only when there's a planet there.
But that's
Right?
Bādhaka sthana, right? So
Is the Bādhaka sthana, but it's only going to give a problem if there's planets in the Bādhaka sthana.
what is it?
If there's no planets there, then it ends up being the Bādhakesh, which can be in any house. Because if that was the case, then we'd say that all dual signs are worshipping a dancing form to remove the Bādhaka, and we can't say that because the form is going to change, because the Bādhaka is changing.
But okay, but if dual signs have planets in the 7th, then they would have...
Yeah, and the chances,
But just for being dual, most people will have problem in marriages. Because I know there's a lot of charts in dual signs.
it's more chances, but only if there's planets there, and they have more likelihood of a planet being there. They have more likelihood of the Bādhaka being in the 7th house, but it doesn't automatically make it in the 7th house for them. All depends on the time of year they were born. And the fixed signs have more likelihood of having a Bādhaka in the 9th house with spirituality and the guru, but only if there's a planet there. If not, it's moving somewhere else. So, in that way, they have more likelihood, but it's not a high enough percentage to make that big of a difference.
But even the fundamental statement you made, I think Mithuna and Virgo rising generally have marital problems.
But what about Sagittarius and Pisces?
Generally less so than the other two.
Yeah, exactly. But they all have the 7th house as the Bādhaka.
I know.
So
when I see some charts on...
So it's just the way we look at it. We have to understand that it's not always that house. That's where it's originating from.
Right.
Basically, when we see Gemini and Virgo Lagna, basically Jupiter we take as the most important beneficiary. And for them, Jupiter becomes a Bādhakesha.
He becomes the Bādhakesh, but remember what I said about where the Bādhaka is placed. Like for her chart, Venus becomes the Bādhakesh. This is where you were saying, like for Saturn, the Yogacaraka can become the Bādhakesh.
Right.
But is it becoming a very negative Bādhakesh, or in her case it's an obstacle, but once it's overcome it gives more blessings than... So it can give more or less, depending. You follow me?
Yeah, I follow you, but I'm trying to think in different way because why Gemini they connected with Jupiter, and that's what I think.
It's
just Jupiter is the most important beneficiary for any chart.
No, well, sometimes Venus becomes more powerful. But if we look right here, if Jupiter is happy, then all deities are happy with this. Because he represents God overall.
For Libra, Jupiter is in the middle.
Yeah, and Venus and Saturn are more. So it'll all depend on the chart. Relative to the rules that we're using right now. Okay, so if there's a few rules that I want to add in here now. So I think we have the general basics. Play with these things and see and try and utilize them and see where your questions on actual usage come up. And that way we can work with that. There's a few more rules that I wanted to add in. So planet in Lagna. The planet in Lagna is the deity that looks after you. So it's a very important planet. If the Bādhaka goes to Lagna, then it becomes, we didn't go over all the remedies yet. If the Bādhaka goes into the Lagna, not only are we going to worship that form of the deity with the appropriate element, but the particular remedy for the first house is to give away pictures of that deity, or install that deity, a temple of that deity, or help pay for the temple of that deity to be installed. In the second house, mantra japa becomes very important to remove the Bādhaka. Japa with the beads.
Right mantra, but because it's enough.
Third house is puja. Fourth house is renovation of a temple, because often the fourth house shows that the temple in the past life was not looked after, or became dirty and dilapidated. So in this life you have to do some renovation for a temple, but relative to that deity. Seventh house, the upadesha, the actual worship wasn't done properly. Second house, either the wealth was misappropriated, or you said bad things. You said negative things about the deity. First, there was something wrong with the image of the deity, and we talked about the planet's aspecting, getting much more into detail about what that is. Fifth house, presentation and with the supplies needed for puja. Sixth house is Bali. Bali means sacrifice, but literally it would mean feeding. Doing festivals, and all the various temples do all kinds of festivals where lots of people come, and there's food that's being fed to everybody, and that's a lot of money. And so that's where the donations need to go. And the person needs to do some service helping in these things. Seventh house is dances to the deity. So that's where actually dancing in front of the deity becomes important, as well as arranging dances. At the various temple, there's different dances for different occasions, and making those things happen becomes the remedy for that with the particular deity. Eighth house is Bali, again, so it's feeding. Here we also have Bhuta Bali, Bhuta Puja, where you're not actually just offering, like let's say it's a fire element. Not only are you offering that fire element to the deity, but you're also worshipping that element. So if it's fire element, you're also doing fire worship. If it's water element, you're not just offering the water to the deity, but you're actually worshipping the rivers and the water elements as well. So you actually are worshipping that element. Ninth house, if the Bādhaka is falling into the ninth house, we look to the Dharma Devata. And in your chart, thinking about it, I would almost just, all those planets there, it's almost too much. I would go right to the Dharma Devata. Do you remember how to calculate the Dharma Devata? Do you remember how we calculate the Ishta Devata?
The Ishta Devata I know is the moon.
Okay, but how did we calculate the Ishta?
It was the 12th in the Vyasa. It was the 12th from the Atma Devata.
From the Atma Karaka in the Navamsha. Okay, so for the Dharma Devata we go ninth house from Atma Karaka. So for your case, because all those planets are in the ninth, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I would go straight to the Dharma Devata, I think. Don't you agree? Yeah.
So the ninth house from the moon.
Ninth from the Atma Karaka.
Which is the moon?
Your Atma Karaka is the moon. So ninth house from the moon in the Navamsha.
Why do we go for Dharma Devata and not for Ishta Devata and Palam Devata?
It's ninth house.
Because that's what the book said.
What book says?
It's general. There's a few things to show us the different deities. If it's connected to the ninth house, it's Dharma Devata. If there's a connection to the second house, we can also look at the Kula Devata. If there's a connection to the fourth house, we can look at the Grama Devata. So there's these little kind of rules. But you have to be able to see what's... if it is connected to the second house and the family's having problems as well, then use the Kula Devata. If it's connected to the second house and the family's all doing well, then do the traditional remedy in this way. Okay.
We're all Brahmins, and it's in Pisces, both in the Rasi and the Navamsha.
It's Vargotama moon.
So
Nice.
if I go around 9, it would be Venus in Scorpio.
Venus and Scorpio. Okay, well we see it's Venus, but then we take Venus back to the Rashi.
And in the Rashi, that's one of those planets in the 9th house.
Okay, but what sign is Venus in the Rashi?
Cancer.
Cancer. So that's the sign we're looking at to see Venus, and that's a sattvic sign, so it's Annapurna. For Dharma Devata, we generally go Vishnu avatar, but if we're using it for Bādhaka remedy as well, we can use Annapurneshwar, depending on what we're trying to work with.
So you look at it in the Navamsha, and then you bring it back to the Rashi, and look at the sign there.
All these rules that we looked for the deity, we get the planet in the Navamsha, but we have to take it back into the Rashi to see, to know if it's in the second drekana of a dual sign. We can't see that in the Navamsha. We can only see that in the Rashi.
No, not all the rules, though, just the Dharma Devata, because they're the ones we were talking about.
We can do them all. We can even do the Ishta if we wanted to, like that.
Okay.
If we wanted to.
Yeah, but this.
But in general, for the Dharma Devata and Ishta Devata, we use Vishnu.
Okay.
But for her, I think Annapurna is going to be best. You feel that? Yeah. I don't think Parasurama is going to be the best deity for her to remove at the moment. We have to feel these deities, and yeah.
Sorry to be insistent, I just want to make sure I
No, please make sure you get this.
These rules we just written down, the first several is where the Bādhaka falls in the D1, or we look at them in the Navamsha. I'm not sure I...
Everything we're doing is by the Rashi. We just got the Dharma Devata from the Navamsha. Because it's in the 9th house, so it's showing the Dharma Devata worship is necessary.
Okay.
And so who's our Dharma Devata? So we had to look at the Navamsha to see who the Dharma Devata was. But otherwise we're staying in the Rashi. Okay?
So if your Dharma Devata takes you to, say, Kurama, so you worship as the turtle.
You, the Kurma avatar would be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you look for a picture of the deity as a turtle.
I even have can you go grab the picture of the turtle from my altar?
Can you use a real turtle?
Should you have a turtle?
I've never seen the real turtle used.
Or could you have like
Take care of a turtle, sounds like that.
Take care of a turtle would be nice, but I mean sometimes if you end up trapping it, then...
I know, I had one, it's colossal.
Yeah.
But you can have like a turtle in a picture, turtle statue or something.
Yeah. I'll show you the actual, one of the forms that they use.
You mentioned it now.
There's a lot of pictures, if you even try and find the picture of the turning of the ocean of milk, which is, at the bottom of the picture is a little turtle that's holding up the ocean.
Right,
and right there, worship that form, that turtle.
But what about Narashina, where it's like that, tearing open and blood and gory and...
Everything's meant to be.
Pictures of him now.
Yeah, that's Kurma avatar. That's an Orissa. That's where Sanjay's from. That's how they worship Kurma avatar. Very very funny form, but that's a form on the altar. But you can also worship the form turning the ocean or various things like that. Make sure it gets passed back. So.
10th house.
10th house. Again, feeding, offering, feeding to services and holidays rendered to that deity.
Bali?
Bali means sacrifice, literally.
Okay.
And we're not going to go sacrifice anybody today, so we'll just go out and feed them instead.
Okay. But you use Bali for feeding.
Bali literally means sacrifice, and so we for feeding gives us that. Because Bali, one of the main, the concept is that Bali, you sacrifice something to feed the deity. Now we can go and chop a goat's head off and offer its spirit and blood to the deity. But if God is everywhere, Ramakrishna even says, if you want to find God, look inside man. And so God is inside of us. So by feeding people that are there at a festival of that deity. Let's say it's Ram as the deity, and on Ram's birthday, Ram Jayanti, there's a big festival at a local temple. If you go down, and you can either donate your time and help feed people, or donate $100 and something to help pay for everything the temple is feeding, and you're taking care of your body. So do you see the?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you're just talking about that as kind of a substitute for cutting a goat's head off.
Yes.
I mean, it's sacrifice.
No, I'm using it as a complete.
Different.
No, as a complete replacement for cutting a goat's head off.
Okay.
Because instead of cutting a goat's head off and feeding the deity the goat, we realize that anybody there who's there for Ram Jayanti is there celebrating the essence of Ram, and Ram is in all of us. And so by feeding them, we're feeding Ram. We're feeding in the name of Ram.
Okay.
So we're giving sacrifice to Ram.
Okay.
So do you understand the conceptual framework for that? As Karma Dev comes into your hands. 11th house is Tarpana, ritual offerings. And
11th is ritual offerings?
Ritual offerings.
What does that mean?
Depending on basically what we already have, where you're offering milk and kheer to the deity, you're offering water to the deity, you're offering things of this nature. That would be the general way to fulfill that. Would you agree? Yeah. Every day in the morning I go out and offer water to the sun. And when the sun comes up, I just take my little copper vessel here and I just pour it. I see the sun and it looks like I'm pouring water over the sun. Yeah. And 12th house, in general there is no Bādhaka.
Because
it's 12th house, yeah, we got the blessing of the deity. And, but they say you can still sing. Still sing to the deity. And that singing to the deity helps remove everything. Gandhi is the main case. He just Ram, and the whole British government fell. That was the obstacle in his way. His obstacle was
Freedom.
Yes.
On the 9th house, where you were saying worship Annapurna, is that through japa, or how do you mean?
Well, we find a standing form of Annapurna. And it's the Lord of the sign is what?
A Cancer, you mean? The moon.
It's Cancer. So Cancer relates to water. And so we get in Annapurna a lot of times. Sometimes they put Annapurna in the kitchen. You can also put Annapurna in wherever your puja area is. And do you do any type of puja or meditation or worship in the morning?
I worship all kinds of connections.
Well, when you're doing your morning rituals, do you have a little thing of water? Here's my little thing of water. And there's actually water in it. You can actually take and offer water to the deity. There's various other ways to do it depending on the deity. If it's the sun there, then we're pouring water over the Shiva Lingam. So
I do that too.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be a good idea, because it's Annapurna, to donate the food to the needy people?
That as well. But the big thing is worship of the Dharma Devata. And so if obstacles are coming up, generally donating to needy people is if Saturn has a connection. If Saturn has a connection, then we're donating to needy people. So in her case, it's Moon and Venus. It's not saying that when the beggars came, she didn't not feed them. She's feeding them. It's just Annapurna was neglected, and so is wanting to be propitiated and welcomed and offered and given this water. So, and then she'll remove all obstacles. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Some other rules. The fourth house is involved. Look at the Kula Devata. See if there's how the family's doing. And second, see traditionally it's second house for Kula Devata, fourth house for Grama Devata. But most of these, in America, there's not really, no one's worshipping the deity of El Cerrito. So primarily we're using fourth house for Kula Devata. And because that's more of a... And so if the fourth house is involved, see if there's any family rites that have been neglected. And you'll see often someone will be like, oh, my grandmother, she used to do this, used to hold this like vigil for Mother Mary every so-and-so, and she, and so, grandmother used to do it, then this is what you need to continue and do. This is part of the, Mother Mary's been looking after the family, then continue this, or however way this plays out. If the Bādhaka is, whenever the Bādhaka is involved, we have to look at the deities. It's all about the deities, that which we can't see.
So did you say if your Bādhaka owns two houses and one of them is the fourth house? And
So we're not looking at, the Bādhaka doesn't own any houses.
I mean, the Lord. Well, I'm just thinking about, fourth house, and
If it's connected to the fourth house, if the fourth lord is aspecting it, or it's conjunct the fourth lord, or the fourth lord is in the Bādhaka sthana. So a relationship, a sambandha of this nature. Not if it's also the lord of the fourth. That's not, the fourth lord has to have some other sambandha with it. Yeah. Makes sense? Okay. And now, if Jupiter has an association with the Bādhaka, if there's the main thing is Dushtana, Bādhaka, Jupiter combination, and Rahu's in Kendra, meaning 1, 4, 7, or 10. So what do we have in your case, Gail? We have Bādhaka is with Jupiter or no?
With Saturn.
With Saturn,
K2.
not Jupiter, right?
Well, Jupiter is the Bādhaka.
Jupiter is the Bādhaka
with K2 and Saturn.
with K2. So that means Rahu is 7th from.
Right.
Okay. So what that is that's the that's a curse of superior serpents. If Rahu is not in Kendra, then it's the and Gulika is instead, then it's the curse of inferior serpents. Now, what are serpents? What are nagas? And I have a little different interpretation than some other people, but only because of my understanding of the Chinese concept of nagas.
Has to do with energy, life force.
One of the main remedies for when something, in her case, is planting trees.
Oh, you were going to talk about how rock is connected.
So in general, in feng shui, they talk a lot about if there's good, strong trees on a property, then the nagas are happy. And even if you look at this property, you can look across and see those big trees over there. That really big pine tree, that's showing very happy nagas. The land is very happy. If a lot of these developments where they plow down a forest and then build houses, and all the trees are just either babies or not even there, just grass, the nagas aren't happy. And when I first moved into the house, were you here when he said he would never even live in a house like that for 25 years? Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's this one feng shui master who was a lineage carrier from a Chinese lineage, and he's like, he would never live in a house like that for at least 25 years afterwards, at least until the trees can grow back somewhat, so the nagas can be happy. So what are these nagas? Why are they not happy when the trees are knocked down, and why are they happy when the trees are there? And some people say, well, they live underneath the trees, but there's more to it to that. The nagas have this connection with nature. and protecting of nature and the natural surroundings. So when people are cutting down forests and destroying old trees, they're disturbing that nature energy, and so they're disturbing the Nagas. And so these afflictions, like these curses of Nagas in your chart, often have destruction of nature in a previous life. And so the deity is very unhappy because of this. That the Nagas and the deity are very unhappy. And so when the Bādhaka is involved with Jupiter and Rahu is in Kendras from it. I've seen a few of them, and they can, when they get active, they can cause some. Have you been in any dashas where it's been active?
Actually, you know, it's interesting, when I was in the army,
Yeah.
and this was during my Jupiter dasha, and we were out in the field, and in Korea, they really revere their trees because the Japanese came in and just cut them all down and just raped the land, right? So I came in, and the truck was so big, it hit a branch of the tree. And they were so upset, and they went and they wrapped rope around where it got hit. I mean, it was just...
Were you driving the truck?
I was driving the truck, so, you know.
So we can see what happens is what we did in the past, like, you could have easily been one of those Japanese who came in and cut all their trees down. And here's the Naga curse from that.
So then I need to plant trees, but then I can also join organizations that plant trees and donate to, or do I have to do it myself?
There's the one remedy is for Chara signs to put small golden eggs on the altar.
Okay.
For dual signs, dedicate a serpent made of gold. And for fixed signs, to plant trees. I say plant trees for all of them. To put little golden eggs on the altar or little golden snakes to give away to a Brahmin, it's nice. But to me, nothing is better than planting trees, or there's various Sierra, the Sierra Club, these environmental clubs, all about protecting the environment. If there's a type of Naga curse like this, then you should be donating a good, percentage, whatever, take a percentage of what you make. Say 3%, 4%, and just, whatever. If you're doing good, you donate more. If you're not, then you donate less. But donate this to some type of organization like that. That's because you're not going to go out and plant that many trees. I have friends that they do a thing called fruit tree tour, and they drive around the states taking land that's not being used, and they make orchards out of it. Not for humans, just for whatever animals come, because everything is, humans can stop by, pick the fruit, or they fruit tree tour. These kind of things you want to be using as remedies. To me, that's going to do 10 times more than, I know the golden snake remedy, but when we understand like why, that golden snake is supposed to, you give it to a Brahmin, and that gold is supposed to make up for something but at this time in the world, maybe 2,000 years ago, if you cleared an area to grow something and you burned some trees and the Nagas were unhappy, to donate a snake of gold to a Brahmin was enough to appease. But the balance that the earth is now, when we destroy a forest, it's a much bigger deal because there's so much less here right now. So
would if say she didn't do any of this, would the curse come in the form of nature, like lightning hitting a tree?
No, it'll come in some 8th house Rahu reality curse. It might even
wouldn't be a tree falling on it.
Well, there's a thing called Preta Bādhaka, when Ketu is associated with the Bādhaka. And most likely it's a double. It's a curse of superior serpents as well as a Preta Bādhaka. Preta Bādhaka, Ketu, I think it's just Ketu and trines.
Well, yeah, I had experiences in college in the Jupiter Dasha where I woke up with a spirit like choking me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was weird, totally weird. I was really scared.
But that's minimal.
Yeah.
Preta Bādhaks can be people who they're fully, you need an exorcism to remove. Preta means a dead spirit. So the Bādhaka is being caused by some disincarnate being. And
some entities.
Yeah. Unembodied entities. And there's this whole science of you can look at the If the fourth lord is connected to the Bādhaka in that case, then it's somebody from the family. And if it is somebody from the family, then you look at what Bhava lords are connected to it, and you can see who in the family it is. And then you look at the Gulika, and you see what degrees it's in, and you can calculate the age of this, that the spirit died, and the planet's aspecting will show you how they died. And so you can see everything about the spirit that's afflicting you. So, but bottom line is, it's a curse of superior serpents and a Preta Bādhaka. So it could, that's minimal to what it can cause, because, and as I was saying earlier, that in this chapter of Prashnamarga, it goes into demonology. Into this demon causes this problem. This kind of disincarnate spirit causes these problems. If it's this kind of spirit, then the person will dress backwards, and they'll wander around saying, "Give that back, give that back." If it's this combination with this, then the person will continuously be talking to themselves and scolding themselves. If it's this kind of spirit, then the person will, and it literally lists. So when we see somebody and they're maybe going schizophrenic, and we see the chart, not somebody who's born schizophrenic or, a natural schizophrenic, but some schizophrenic reality comes over, the first thing we want to look for is Ketu connected to the Bādhaka and a Dusthana. And then we can see if it's a Preta Bādhaka that's causing, that they're not really going schizophrenic. They just need an exorcism done. So, but there's a whole list of, and I mean, very, literally what they say, give this back, give it back, give it back. Literally it tells what the demons or disincarnate trees or whatever is making them say and making them do. So it's very specific. So yeah, definitely something that requires remedial measures to be done. And I've seen one or two cases. One or two that weren't mine, and one specifically that was a case that came directly to me. And of course I ran the Guruji, what do I do? He explained. So, but that's how you learn. The important thing is that we know that this is the case. Not if you read it too much, then all of a sudden people with these problems are going to be coming to you because they pray and, God, please help me. And then they come to you because God wants them helped and you know how to help them. So I wouldn't go too into it, but it's just important to know that Ketu with the Bādhaka, having a Dusthana connection, and Mars generally will have something to do with the Lagna or the Bādhaka in the Preta Bādhaka situation. Mars is a very occult kind of planet. But if it's just Jupiter and the Rahu in Kendras, then it's the serpents, superior serpents. Does anybody know Einstein's chart off the top of their head?
All I know is that he has moon.
What's his?
I think it's the Gemini ascendant, and I know he has a sixth house debilitated moon.
And there's a Mercury in Pisces.
Because there's, I think he has something about I think he has a superior serpent curse in his chart, which superior serpents give knowledge of things like what he worked with, where inferior serpents give more inferior based knowledge. So this when the Bādhaka is connected to Jupiter in a Dusthana. In a Dusthana, yeah. And you will see it. If you do enough charts, you'll see it. So it's just an important one to know. And to know that both in Vedic Remedies and Prashnamarga gives various cures and things of that nature.
Where do you buy these golden eggs and serpents?
As I said, I don't believe in the golden eggs and serpents. I don't use it. That's my personal belief. Most other people in SJC are using golden eggs and golden snakes because Prashnamarga says so. My personal opinion is the golden egg won't work anymore to make the Nagas happy. Maybe it did back then, but now there's nothing that's going to replace that money that the Sierra Club is going to buy 50 more trees to replant something that was destroyed. Or something. There's nothing that's going to make the Nagas happier than that. There's other than you planting a tree and waiting 20 years for it to grow big enough to make them happy. So.
Now, on this, if I might just say a short story, in Sonoma there is an Agori ashram, and as you know, the Agoris, in the olden days we worship the dead, go in the cemetery, but this is a whole new version. It's exactly what you say, that you have to transform things according to the time, and now he looks just like a normal person, and but they're creating hospices, they're creating orphanages, and in India they work with leprosy, so they are using that working with darkness. In a way, there's a socially much more needed right now, and it's the same thing, I think, of using the symbology according to our time.
Okay, I think that's the main things I wanted to cover on Bādhaka. And that gives us a good idea of how remedies are beginning to work. Because we can use these remedies in multiple other ways when they come up. Because understanding how there's a big, and it comes really stemmed from the ACVA. The whole ACVA philosophy is let's worship the graha. Moons has a problem, let's do moon mantras. And from our view, it's just the planet. You might as well get a picture of the moon and put, why have to draw the moon into a person? You might as well have a picture of the moon and worship the moon then, if you're going to. The planets are representing deities. And so it's going to be more beneficial to understand what deity that moon is representing. And going into that and things of that nature. It'd also be I've been collecting for the last few years different pictures of deities as well, trying to slowly get all the standing, all the sitting, all the long way to go. But maybe eventually we'll have a library here with all those different images so that we can prescribe them and have somewhere for people to get them, because otherwise it's a Bādhaka that's causing an obstacle. You need this to remove it, and you're Bādhaka and you know where to get it. So it's like, good luck, here's the remedy. Okay.
Well, can I clarify here? So here in the book, page 445, Vedic Remedies, it says rather than movable signs, you just do the small eggs of gold and silver be offered, and then rather than fixed sign, you plant trees. So if you're thinking that eggs don't work, then what would you do instead?
I think planting trees
still counts
or don't for all three of them.
All three signs.
For all three of them, if there's the serpent curse in the chart, which there's a few different types of serpent curses. Okay. This is one of them that we mentioned in your chart. Right. Then my personal opinion is the planting trees remedy. And that's more from understanding what are nagas. Because nagas aren't just snakes. They're not physical snakes living out there. They're these protectors. Why, if you mow down a forest, will the nagas get mad? Is it because the snakes all moved away? To me, this is not understanding nagas fully.
What is coming to me that the nagas, and again, I never heard this word before today, but is their dharma to protect.
Yes.
And just like when you kill a Brahmin, you also kill the opportunity for the Brahmin to do his dharma. So we're taking the dharma away from all these spirits.
Naga literally means serpent, like a snake.
Right.
Literally, that's what it means. But not snake that crawls on the ground. It's more celestial snake. Right. So there's superior serpents and inferior serpents, and supposedly they, as you go up in planes, dimensions, there's various deities like Saraswati and stuff living. But if you go down in lokas, that's you reach Naga realms. And the Nagas are supposed to be
Wake up.
The Nagas hold knowledge. They're knowledge keepers. They have a jewel in their third eye that guides them light, that they see even in the dark with this jewel that's in their third eye. So they do have this protection of nature, and they are connected with just the energy of nature. One way to worship them, like for this one where it's Tarpana in the 11th house, it's where you actually go to, if there's holes around the tree, you actually go and you pour milk into those holes. offering that milk into these places where snakes reside.
That's the 11th house also?
11th house Tarpana offering, ritual offerings. Yeah. See, all these have to be, I'm giving you the real general principle, but they all have to be fit. 1, we have to fit the time. 2, we have to fit the deity. 3, we have to fit the person that's coming to us and what the religion is. So these are just general principles.
Right.
From this, we have to go a million different ways. But this is our axis to spin off of. Okay. Yeah. So we have a small group left. And I just wanted to I have listed down here. Is Scott still here or did they leave? They left? Okay.
Could you push that?
But I can get the notes to her.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, well, I'd want her to decide.
Oh.
Because we have Ganita, which is the mathematical calculations. I have Graha, Rashi, Nakshatra, Bhava, the houses. Karakas, which we did a little bit today. Special Lagnas, Vargas, Yogas, Bala, Avasta, longevity and health, Dasha, and yeah, I think that's when we do a beginner's workshop in January. Those are going to be our topics to go over.
Could you read them again?
Ganita. Ganita is the mathematics. Graha. Rashi. Nakshatra. Bhava. Karakas. Special Lagnas. Varga. Yogas. Bala. Bala means strength. Avasta, state. Longevity and health, Ayur. Dash and Dasha. I think that's what we need to start with our beginners, right?
Dash, D-A-S-H?
Dasha, D-A-S-H, timing.
Longevity, Dasha, and what was the last name? Longevity.
Longevity, Ayur. Ayur, A-Y-U-R, means Ayur.
And then Dasha.
And then Dasha.
So when you say iron, are you talking about the divisional charts?
Ayur just means Vargas. Vargas divisional charts.
Yeah.
You know why you want to do Vargas?
No, so I was wondering if you were talking about the iron method.
No. A-Y-U-R. Ayur means life.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah, like Ayurveda.
Okay,
Are
great.
you asking us to pick one of these?
Oh, yeah. though I kind of have some thoughts already for certain ones. No, you can turn that off.